is it, that makes, what's the secret sauce, right? And what is it that, makes it that, makes us the home of DePIN? Well, PEAQ is a layer 1 blockchain with an EVM focus, right? While our base layer is substrate, we have chosen right now to focus primarily on our EVM implementation. For any blockchain aficionados out there, the most similar architecture that I could describe this as would be, it's a Moonbeam-like chain, where Moonbeam's base layer, again, is a Polkadot parachain. And as far as their EVM composability and compatibility, it's done through an EVM palette, which is almost like a library, if you will, if you're familiar with kind of JavaScript coding. So as far as PEAQ network, again, substrate base layer, EVM implementation built on top, so you can interact in an Ethereum-like manner, aka smart contracts and Web3 wallets like MetaMask. But we offer specific tooling for DePINs that allow them to create unique digital identities for themselves. Self-sovereign machine identities help us track devices, sensors, robots, machines, any other thing that you want to identify on chain. We're able to use our decentralized identities for this, right? And this comes with a whole slew of modularity that comes with it, right? When you create a DID, there's a document body you sign. You can use different types of signatures, or you can have it report to an endpoint or a service. And in doing so, you're able to get a lot of modularity out of the DePINs out of the DIDs as far as what they represent and the data that can be sourced from them or from their respective endpoints and such, right? So this creates a nice signature key verification system where, if there's certain levels of access or control that you want a wallet to have, you can dictate that. Or if you don't want them to see any information at all, they can't make the proper requests without knowing, certain document information. So that's one feature that really gives us a lot of power in being able to identify, the different machines and devices and such, right? Our whole vision, again, is to create this machine economy. So as I'm sure you can imagine, it's not just enough that we have identities on chain for these machines. We also need a form of storage. Now, we have on-chain storage in the form of PEAQ storage. This is another one of our unique offerings that separate us from kind of the rest of the DePINs, or layer 1s, if you will. PEAQ storage, right now, it's in a very, I'd say, kind of basic form. And what I mean by that is we only allow a certain amount of data to be stored on chain. I believe it's 128 bytes, if I'm not mistaken. What this essentially means is you use PEAQ storage as a way to store concatenated or hashed data, right? So you don't want to store your entire data set on chain, right? It's going to get very costly for you as a project or for you as a provider very quickly. Instead, what you want to opt to do is to have some sort of maybe content link, like to IPFS, maybe to a CID, right? And maybe this is what you store on chain to reference your off-chain storage mechanism, right? We do have decentralized storage solutions. One of the DePINs building on us is DNet. They're becoming quickly a leader in off-chain storage solutions, competing with the likes of IPFS, Filecoin, and some of the other major players in the game as well. Let's see, so that's PEAQ storage. Let's see, what else do builders like about us here? Well, we also have role-based access control, PEAQ verify. And yeah, I mean, these are just some of the basic features that we offer on our layer that, make DePINs want to choose us, right? Now, as far as kind of the rest of the DePINs, we have a lot of DePINs right now that are rather, I'd say, basic, if you will. And there's nothing wrong with that. The model just is very simple. You either acquire a device or you download some software, right? And in doing either one of those things for whatever respective project you're within, you're able to provide data and receive token rewards for doing so, right? So in the case of like Silencio, which is a DePIN that's building on PEAQ, you download their phone app on iOS or Android, so it's device agnostic. You create a DID on their app and you are able to post data, and you are rewarded with Silencio tokens for sending your relevant noise data. Now, this is powerful because, again, we're able to incentivize data collection at a scale that's never been seen before, right? This is the whole DePIN model. And they're specifically, I guess you could call them a digital resource network, right? If you talk about DePIN, they're kind of two arms of it. You have your DRNs, your digital resource networks, and your physical resource networks. To make it very simple, physical resource networks are just kind of your device networks, right? Like, let's see, trying to think of one off the top of my head. Oh, SkyX. SkyX is a perfect example of this, right? You have a weather machine that you buy from the company. You end up setting it up, providing data. You receive SkyX tokens back as a reward. This is very device specific, right? You can only reward the tokens or receive the reward tokens for providing the data from that specific device. Whereas something like Silencio, Digital Resource Network, this is, again, device agnostic. As long as the application can be ran within the specific, whatever hardware you choose to run it on, you can essentially have further growth, further traction, etc. There's advantages to using both, one or the either, right? And it's very crucial that you kind of think about this when you're designing whatever project you're working on, to know forwardly if it's, again, going to be something that's device agnostic, can be run on anything as long as you can run it, or is it something that you're going to require specific hardware for? These are some crucial design decisions that if you're going to be building a DePIN, you want to think about ahead of time. But yeah, so this is kind of just all over the place. So, I'm just kind of seeing what sticks. So yeah, I guess I'll take a breath here and hand it back to Mark for a moment.
Yeah, actually, there's a lot of interesting DePIN projects. Maybe forgive me if I haven't like checked. The last thing that piques my interest is Silencio. Yeah, maybe yeah, it's kind of unique idea, and maybe with regards to, maybe this is a concern, or maybe a personal concern. With regards to data privacy, is PEAQ like also handling that, or since it's a permissionless network, you don't care whether, what's your thoughts about that, data privacy?
That's a very good question. So that kind of speaks back to a little bit about what I was talking about with PEAQ storage, right? We also, again, have our product, the role-based access control, right? So this is kind of twofold. Part of the PEAQ storage, again, is that you can only store a limited data set. Part of the DePIN's model is that you only post data that you consent to providing, right? And this is really what's significant is when we talk about Web 2, Google, Amazon, Facebook, any of these major big tech giants, they just take your data. They don't ask you. I mean, to some degree they do. A lot of times they get their hands slapped in court and then they have to throw up a warning somewhere. But typically these guys just take your data, sell it elsewhere. They don't care. DePIN, the whole point, again, is that you are able to incentivize people wanting to provide their data, wanting to give it away, and monetize it, right? This is significant because it returns that consent back to the users, right? So on the application layer, above our stack itself, right, the application layer is where this occurs. For each individual DePIN, they choose their own data privacy. However, again, the model incentivizes people wanting to provide their data, right? The other portion of this too is as far as what PEAQ does. Again, the PEAQ storage doesn't allow for very great data storage. And as far as when you create a PEAQ DID, for example, we typically prefer that you use some form of hashed, verifier. Like in the case of our upcoming marketing campaign, the Get Real campaign, right? When a DID is generated, it's generated off of an email address. We don't post your email address directly on chain. No. No. That'd be a bad idea. We don't want to see that. So instead, what we end up doing is we end up attaching, typically a project will have a backend service that will verify these things. It will then go ahead and post a hashed version, or that way you're never really truly seeing this on-chain data, right? Like my email, does not get posted on chain, thankfully. That'd be very bad. But yeah, so there's different levels of how we can kind of control and manage this stuff, whether it's on the app level or through our role-based access control. You can kind of manage this stuff either on-chain or off-chain. And there's different mechanisms to do so.
Yeah, it's good to hear about that. And also, I want to like give a comment about like your choice of platform to build on top of, because I believe well, EVM is still relatively much easier to learn than the other smart contracting language. In fact, when we teach Web3, that's one that we recommend first for starters. And also, I think you have SDKs and APIs that's fairly easy to build on top of, even with just Web 2 knowledge or existing knowledge, you can build easily. And yeah, probably
Correct.
yeah, because I only know of Silencio. What other interesting projects are out there aside from Silencio, or maybe things that yeah, pretty much like novel DePIN projects.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of some really novel projects are, projects like FarmScent, for example, right? Their whole goal is to reimagine the global food supply chain. We've done a little bit of light marketing about them. I definitely recommend, if anybody has not heard about them here, to definitely go and check them out. Because I mean, they really speak to PEAQ's vision of, democratizing access, universal basic ownership being shared by everybody. To me, these really speak to kind of the ethos and vision of PEAQ, and these are things that I think really kind of drive and push the needle forward. Right, it really inspires people to kind of dream big and chase in almost seemingly impossible dreams. Right, I mean, again, imagine reimagining all of global food supply. Like, that's a very lofty goal, right? And of course, you have to start somewhere. So their target areas are actually Indonesia. I believe that's one of the first areas they're going to be working within. But it's their DePIN model kind of works in the way of, they'll put sensors within the soil. These sensors will, of course, collect aggregate data, O2, humidity levels, all sorts of different type of metrics that is relevant. But all of this data can not only be used in, your typical kind of Web2 resources, right? Like, this can go to their government or their ministries of farming, or, any of the relevant regulatory agencies that might have their hand in the pot. But these can also be used in additional revenue streams, whether it's training AI models or used for agentic frameworks, or, large big data sets that are crafted with other DePINs. These can really get incredibly robust and modular. And the best part about these large data sets that are generated by projects like FarmScent, projects like Silencio, is the fact that, again, not only are they modular, but they are machine verified data sources, right? So again, when you're assigning the IDs to these machines, you know that it's within that project, within that application, and you're able to, again, kind of verify that all this data that we just received came from this one device. We know exactly where this device is because we asked them for their location, or any of the other relevant info that we need, right? And again, you now kind of solve big data's issue, where big data has a lot of synthetic data that's added, whether it's falsified or we've seen bot farms, right? I'm sure people have seen the videos of the people managing 100 separate phones at once, whether it's playing Candy Crush or, mining crypto or something, right? Like, I mean, that happens regularly every day. But it's not like we can't make use of those devices still, right? Those are still unique devices that can provide work. They have CPUs, they have GPUs, they have networking, they have bandwidth. So even a project like DATS, for example, you're able to monetize your device's resources, whether it's a phone or a computer, or maybe even a Linux server, right? You have the modularity with a lot of these DePINs, again, if they're device agnostic, to really harness their resources and put them towards specific applicable uses. In the case of DATS, it's about cybersecurity. They're also, I think, planning on doing something AI related soon. Not going to dive into details there because I might be spoiling some alpha. But there's a lot of really unique cases and projects that are being built. And again, whether it's device, physical resource network, or digital resource network, device agnostic, it really doesn't matter. There's a lot of unique cases for each of them. And just off the top of my head, FarmScent, Ex Machina, Silencio, SkyX, Teneo, these are all very, diverse projects as far as what they, what data they source. Some of them provide devices, others do not. So definitely, if I had a short list for you guys to look at, Ex Machina, FarmScent, SkyX, Silencio, and Teneo. And that would be my top 5 I'd recommend for you guys to check out. Again, just because they're so varied and unique compared to each other.
Yeah, cool stuff. So guys, anyone got some questions for Darian? So where should one start if they want to check on how to build on PEAQ?
Absolutely. So I'd of course recommend you hit our GitHub first. Our documentation is still in a little need of revision. We are buttoning it up over the next month here. That's one of our big goals, is to improve the developer experience overall here at PEAQ Network. Feel free to hit our documentation if you'd like. Again, it does need just a little bit of love, but it doesn't mean all the information is entirely outdated. Our best source of truth is always going to be our GitHub, however, right? We have not only a PEAQ SDK in JavaScript, we also have a Python SDK that we're working on as well. And in the future, maybe some other implementations as well as they come about and as there's more developer interest. We are, I believe we have an iOS SDK that we can use and an Android SDK as well. Those might need just a little bit of love too. I think specifically to iOS and Flutter SDK. But I think one of our partner projects, specifically Silencio, actually might have an updated repository. So again, just a little bit of housekeeping we need to do on our side here, but generally the best source of truth is always going to be our GitHub as far as maintaining parity and keeping up with any of the new technological offerings we provide, or programmatic offerings rather.
Cool. Definitely will check it out. Yes. Yeah. We have some ideas that will probably prototype the coming weeks. Yeah. Because I'm personally a graduate of like computer engineering and has some background on hardware and stuff. Maybe one last question from me. Maybe you can share about what sort of opportunities are there in PEAQ at the moment, or maybe encourage these guys to explore and build on top of it.
Absolutely. So if I had to picture from a tech side of things, I'd say that this is the most unique and interesting tech stack I have ever worked with. And I myself have been a developer for over 10 years. I've been in crypto for over 10 years as well. The first coin I ever got into was Feathercoin for any OGs back in the day. I used to buy it on BTCE, which is a very defunct exchange as of now. So I've been in the trenches for a while, if you will, and coding Solidity as of the last 3-4 years. What I found with PEAQ and the Substrate framework is incredibly powerful compared to what a typical EVM chain offers. Again, right now our focus is kind of singly on the EVM portion of our chain, right? And that's more so just for kind of initial composability, right? We're still a very recent chain as of launching, I believe, 2-3 months ago, almost. Oh my God, time flies when you're having fun. But yeah, so essentially while we're still kind of maturing, building out our infrastructure, developing all this, adding in new integrations and such, it's still to be built. There's still a lot of stuff that's being built regularly each and every day. So yeah, I'd say that, honestly, the real power is going to come from the composability and the message passing that you can do between EVM and Substrate. So if I had any recommendations, it'd be whoever can figure out really to, cleanly create an application that makes use of both. You're probably going to, hit the ground running. But I mean, it's not like applications and DePINs can't just strictly be built on one layer or the other, right? But again, the most interesting applications are definitely going to be the ones that make use of both technology stacks. So hats off to anybody who does make use of that stuff. It's very complex. But yeah, as far as incentives and such, we also have a grant program that's in revision right now. Once we kind of have a more final approach of how we want to take the grant program, because it's not that there's been abuse, but we just want to have a more rigid, stringent kind of document that you can reference and say like, okay, this is clearly what I need to do to get a PEAQ grant. Because right now it's very on a case-by-case basis, if you will, right? We also do have regular partnerships with many VC and capital firms. So Outlier Ventures, for example, they just started a DePIN base camp. It's an accelerator startup program. So any founders out there, if you're listening, this is exactly the type of opportunity to help you get the support you need to get your project up and running. We also have a cap fund with Borderless. They also, are contributing to try and drive DePIN forward. So I believe we have a $100 million total pool with them to be able to support DePIN initiatives. So, and then we of course have plenty of other, interested investment firms as well and VCs, so and hedge funds. But yeah, lots of support in the PEAQ network. As far as technologically, we have builders networks to help you connect with the other DePINs within the network as well. We have our lovely ambassadors, just like Zeeth here, who's running this whole AMA to begin with. Shout out to Zeeth, that's my boy. But yeah, so I mean, there's plenty of not only human capital, but resources as well, and further improvement to the developer experience ongoing to help get you guys where you need to be. So yeah, any questions you have at all, plenty of ways that we can help get you guys there. Absolutely.
Cool stuff. Yeah, looking forward to build on PEAQ. How about you, Rod? Do you have something to say?
Yeah, it's really cool, right? So, if you have anything more to add, because we have the we have a shorter time right now. Maybe you can go to Discord and we can chat there. We have just get roles for the Philippines, and if you have anything you need to ask about, and we can wrap up directly to developers or to Discord, so we could chat there and exchange more information about that. And probably we'd be happy to like do a collaboration with some events that we can do in the Philippines, and then do partnerships with your projects. So let me know. Yeah, Darian, really appreciate for your time here, and we are in the Philippines are really bullish on what we can do. Looking forward, and the developers are really working hard tirelessly. So I guess as Darian is doing the ecosystem lead for AOT Lab, AOT Lab is the same platform, but it's a company for PEAQ. So yeah, so EOT Labs is where Darian is. So yeah, it's the economy of things, and we are looking forward to incentivize more on how we can integrate devices using DID. So looking forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, final words, Darian. We have more.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, come join us, come find us, again, every single day we're trying to build out this economy of things, the machine economy. So, if that speaks to you, then, come join us, come home. But yeah, so thank you for your time today, gentlemen. I would love to do this again sometime. Absolutely. Come back for a second round, maybe in like a month, 2 months, what have you. Maybe do like a follow-up, just kind of on what we've built, and maybe do like a regular review here. But yeah, any questions you guys have at all, just feel free to join our Discord. Feel free to tag me. I'm at Donnie Marbles. And yeah, any questions you have at all, just feel free to ask. Or Zeeth, if you want to pass them my way, I'd be happy to review them too.
Yeah, appreciate.
Sure
Thank
thing.
you very much.
Are you going to
Thank you, gentlemen.
consensus?
Not Consensus Hong Kong. I will be at ETH Denver though, so if anybody's at
Oh,
ETH Denver, feel free to hit me up. We
that's
do
too
have a
far from
couple
here.
people going to Hong Kong though in Consensus. So I believe our head of ecosystems going, Martin. I'd have to follow up with you on that. I know we're sending somebody there. I just don't exactly know who's on the roster.
Yeah, you're right.
Awesome, but I'll follow up with you guys on it for sure. Okay,
Okay,
All right. Thanks,
appreciate.
Darian.
no worries. Have a
Thank you
wonderful
so
day,
much
everybody.
to the block and to all the communities here present, especially to all you guys. Appreciate for supporting Peak Philippines. Bye
Thanks,
for now.
Ron.
Thank you, everybody.